everyone, welcome to Pipo Coin channel. If you are new to the channel, I hope you will subscribe by the end of this video. A cursory examination of the events surrounding Ripple and the RLUSD stablecoin reveals that numerous significant actions have been taken since its launch. The meetings with the Treasury of Secretary date back to the middle of 2024, correct? We go all the way back to 2022 when Ripple was posting about the stablecoin competition as it was happening. Ripple is always 2 steps ahead of everybody in this field, and they have been preparing for this moment for some time. Are you ever curious as to why? Correct? For example, if Ripple is discussing it now, things will begin to change in a few months, or perhaps even a year or two. For the same reason, the projections made by Ripple employees in 2023 proved to be highly accurate in 2024. You could respond, well, Nick, you're just a conspiracy theorist, but they are a part of the larger scheme. You don't actually know it for sure, you know. Or you may be saying, okay, you're speculating, Nick. However, the question, is it not like, let's go back 10 years? Let's go back to 2013, 2012, 2014, and 2015, shall we? Like ever since you are aware of the beginnings of Ripple, XRP-L, and XRP. What have we seen from Ripple so far? We have witnessed them establish connections with international groups around our current financial system, in addition to hundreds of institutions. Okay, so we saw the news regarding RLUSD back in December, and this is with unparalleled compliance and utility experience. Many individuals believe that RLUSD has no bearing whatsoever on XRP, yet they are incorrect in this regard. What a stablecoin does to the underlying network on which it is issued and settled has a big effect on the network's underlying demand, which in turn affects the underlying asset that settles transactions on the network. In this instance, we examine the additional XRP using XRP. Now, the New York Department of Financial Services is the reason I'm bringing this piece up again. Early on, Ripple purposefully decided to introduce our stablecoin under the Limited Purpose Trust Corporation charter of the New York Department of Financial Services. Widely recognized as the world's most important regulatory standard, Brad Garlinghouse sent this. We anticipate increased use of stablecoins like RLUSD, which provide genuine utility and are supported by years of industry trust and experience as the U.S. moves toward clear laws. All right, therefore, let's stand back and give this some serious thought, because when we examine RLUSD, we also need to consider all of the individuals that were added to the advisory board. The first vice president and chief operations officer of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, as well as a former governor of the Reserve Bank of India. For example, these places have a direct connection to the advisory board. Just consider how absurd that is. The other people that are connected to this advisory board are then examined as well. As an illustration, consider former FDIC Chair Sheila Bair, Partners Capital Vice Chairman and former Center Consortium CEO David Puth, and Chris Larson, co-founder and executive chairman of Ripple. Now, once more, I just wanted to briefly review it because we need to return and discuss the New York Department of Financial Services. And the reason for that is that we arrived here on March 13th, 2025, which is when the DFSA license was just announced, correct? We discussed it. Let's quickly scroll all the way down. Take a look at all the licenses that Ripple has obtained. All right, they already hold money transmitter licenses and MTLs in several U.S. states, but they also hold a trust charter from the New York Department of Financial Services. What's interesting about all of that is that if we go back to February 13th, 2024, Ripple announced that it had expanded its portfolio of regulatory licenses by acquiring Standard Custody and Trust Company. Because this is a big one once more. This is significant since it allowed them to obtain that chartered license. Additionally, if we scroll down, we can see that Ripple and its affiliates together possess a York Bit license, almost 40 U.S. money transmitter licenses, a major payment institution license from the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and a Central Bank of Ireland virtual asset service provider registration. We now travel all the way back to 2016, the year this was published. Ripple is granted a second bit license by New York regulators. The New York State Department of Financial Services granted them this license, making them the second blockchain company to do so. This is significant. When we visit this content from Subjective Views, it's a huge deal. Subjective Views deserves a lot of praise. Adrian A. Harris, the superintendent of the New York Department of Financial Services, claims that FTX failed the extremely difficult licensing process. They regulate banks and insurance firms in a manner comparable to the full-scope examination and supervision process. Additionally, she claims that they released the sole regulatory guideline regarding stablecoins, which is now the foundation for the measures that are being considered by Congress. After reading or viewing this, two things instantly caught my attention. First, as far back as 2016, Ripple has a BIT license from the New York Department of Financial Services. Additionally, as we'll see in a moment, Congress has recently praised the New York Department of Financial Services as a top regulator of digital assets and cryptocurrency, both domestically and internationally. Pay close attention to what they have to say. What have you been up to as a regulator of digital assets, may I ask? Additionally, Abby Joseph Cohen of Columbia University sent us a question online regarding your views on digital assets and consumer protection. Digital assets in general, and then in particular to Professor Cohen's inquiry regarding consumer protection, which is related to your perspective. Yes, indeed. So the world of digital assets is rather fascinating, isn't it? Because you've heard so much before, particularly in Washington, don't you? You will legalize it if you govern it. Occasionally, I would speak with other regulators, both domestically and internationally, and they would respond, well, we don't understand the value of these things. For example, why are they there? And in my opinion, that isn't the regulator's primary responsibility. The products and tools are available, but they must be properly regulated because they have the potential to cause significant harm. Therefore, DFS is the only prudential regulator in the nation that is also the most active. Pertaining to digital assets, thus we have the BIT license as you mentioned, therefore you need a DFS license in order to do virtual currency business in New York. Either a limited purpose trust charter or the BIT license can be used for that. The licensing procedure is extremely demanding. FTX, for example, disclosed that they were looking for a license in New York. They didn't get one, and neither did Celsius, Voyager, or a host of other companies. After that, there is full-scope supervision and examination. In the same manner that we inspect banks and insurance firms, we have a team of examiners who visit the companies and conduct examinations at regular or controlled intervals. They have MRIs and MRAs, and we can discuss enforcement actions when necessary. We have now completed 9 pieces of regulatory guidance in addition to the regulations. DFS is the only reliable coin guidance available, and it has served as the foundation for many of the measures that are currently being considered by Congress. We have provided counsel on market fraud, blockchain analytics, and customer service. You see, but this brings us back to the original question, I believe, where we have very strict rules and everything is very clear. You can also see that responsible businesses are regulated in New York, and the market there is still expanding responsibly. Like banks and insurance firms, no business is flawless. We have used crypto to bring enforcement proceedings, therefore we filed a $100 million lawsuit against Coinbase. Although we have had the jurisdiction since 2015, I actually brought the first enforcement actions in DFS against cryptocurrency companies. We filed a $100 million lawsuit against Coinbase and a $30 million lawsuit against Robinhood. We were able to return over $2 billion in virtual currency to customers in the most recent action we had against Gemini. Regarding reparations, I received this adorable email from a man in Ohio that said, "Thank you for returning my virtual currency. I'll come spend it in New York. Since DFS handles tourism, I forwarded that to my boss. We are a diverse regulator now."